this country by terror away from the Sioux, the Apache, the Arawak, the Comanche, the Arapaho, the Navajo. Terrorism. We took Africans from their country to build our way of ease and kept them enslaved and living in fear. Terrorism. We bombed Grenada and killed innocent civilians, babies, non-military personnel. We bombed the black civilian community of Panama with stealth bombers and killed unarmed teenagers and toddlers, pregnant mothers and hardworking fathers. We bombed Gaddafi's home and killed his child. Blessed are they who bash your children's head against a rock. We bombed Iraq. We killed unarmed civilians trying to make a living. We bombed a plant in Sudan to pay back for the attack on our embassy. Killed hundreds of hard-working people, mothers and fathers who left home to go that day not knowing that they never get back home. We bombed Hiroshima. We bombed Nagasaki. And we nuked far more than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon. And we never batted an eye.
Comes to 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good being murdered in broad daylight in Minneapolis, Minnesota by masked ICE thugs. There's a lot of uninformed, straight up ignorant opinions floating around, the same comments over and over again. So let's squash it now, because people are saying things like, oh, well, she tried to hit him with her car. Well, she used the vehicle as a weapon. Well, he feared for his life. And I'm going to tell you that none of that matters. What matters is the law and policy. And what Department of Homeland Security policy clearly states is that ICE agents are not allowed to use their firearms to stop a moving vehicle. Now, there is an exception. There is an exception, and that is when the vehicle is being used to threaten deadly force. But even then, there's a condition on that. You still can't just shoot. There's another condition, and that is that there has to be no other objectively reasonable means of defense. Here's the problem. We know for a fact that there was another objectively reasonable mean of defense, because both agent that you see on the side of the vehicle that Renee was on used that. Let's watch the clip. No, shame. Did you catch it? They stepped out of the way. They moved their bodies out of the way and were no longer at risk of being hit by the car. As a matter of fact, one of the agents was still sticking his arm in the car. So clearly he always knew he could simply step back. That was their objectively reasonable mean of defense. And instead, one of the agents murdered that woman, because it's murder. You didn't have to do that. It was not necessary. And that's what the law requires, is the lethal force necessary. And no, it was not. So when he shot Renee in the face, he murdered her. And that is on camera. And I'm hoping that the state of Minnesota will make sure to prosecute this murderer to the fullest extent of state law, because we don't need the federal government for this. And when the jury is read the instruction of how to decide if this was a reasonable use of lethal force, they're going to be asked, was this necessary? And the video evidence is going to show that no, it was not, because they could, and they did, simply move out of the way. When it comes to 37-year-old Renee.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. Booker Square sounds like a prosecutor right there, presenting the final arguments to the jury. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm your co-host, Niele Anderson. And of course, there's a lot to talk about today, but the top story is, of course, what's happened in Minneapolis once again. But before Booker Square, you saw Reverend Jeremiah Wright, very once popular pastor coming out of Chicago. He's actually the Obama's former pastor and the inspiration behind Barack Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope. Jeremiah Wright inspired that book that pushed Barack Obama to national platforms in politics. And so what he was saying is so relevant today. And that was probably like from the 80s, Stacy.
Well, you know, here's really what folks might be the game changer in all of this. And I saw this written somewhere last night. And this is what it says. It says, white people waking up to the fact that the government can literally murder you in the street on live TV and call you a terrorist and walk away to a promotion and a bonus. Black people, of course, have known this all along. That
Mhm.
could be, you talk about these game changers, and you don't want anyone losing their lives, but maybe even for the MAGA folks, and perhaps even a little bit later, we're going to talk about healthcare. Perhaps that's even what's galvanizing what happened yesterday on Capitol Hill.
For sure. But of course, everybody is talking about this story out of Minneapolis. And we've been here before with just, police sanctioned violence. ICE is a form of police. So this is another form of police sanctioned violence. And it is just heart wrenching. I mean, yesterday felt like 2020 all over again.
Well, here's the other thing too with this, and let's not forget, this was a single mom who lost her husband 2 years ago, has a 4-year-old, either a 4-year-old or 6-year-old, but a small child who is now parentless. His grandfather was quoted, and I'm not sure where his grandfather lives. I do know his grandfather doesn't live anywhere near Minneapolis. Was quoted as saying, "I got to get on a plane and go get my grandson. I will find my way there." But this child now has lost both parents within 2 years, and we're talking about young parents.
hmm
And so we have such a callous um squad there in ICE, and we talked about this yesterday, and there's no getting around the fact that there are so many, and it's not just, folks, understand, it's not just us here at Let It Be Known, Black news outlets saying this. I've seen it in Politico. I've seen it in the Washington Post. I've seen it, in LA Times. The people many people, not all of the agents, but many of the agents, certainly the agents that have been hired over the last year, most of them are without any law enforcement experience. Most of them are just Trump supporters who will do anything to please that man. This is not, this is not even a complaint. This is a fact. And many of them are just hateful, spiteful, and now you put a gun and a badge on their person, and this is what you get. This is exactly what you get.
100%. And there's nothing like having the facts about this situation. So joining us now is Minneapolis journalist from On-Site Public Media. He's also an organizer for Minneapolis. Let it be known, family, welcome Toussaint Morrison. Hey, Toussaint, I hate that most times we come together, it's to have these hard conversations about what the state of our nation and police sanctioned violence. But nevertheless, welcome to Let It Be Known.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Niele.
For sure. So let's just, so let me frame for our viewers who you are. So Toussaint is boots on the ground, Minneapolis. He's an organizer, he's a journalist, and he knows the facts as what's going on in that city. We first met back in 2020 during George Floyd. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you and Nikema Levy continue to do when there are no cameras in the city, first off.
Yeah.
But talk to us about what the state of Minneapolis is today. We've seen the videos last night. We've seen the protests. Talk to us about what's happening right now in Minneapolis.
Well, what's happening right now in Minneapolis is a general sadness. I wouldn't say defeated. I wouldn't say passive, but a general sadness and a very focused rage. Right now, it feels strange in the umbrella of a federal, dare I say that, a federal attack of federal agents bringing about violence, and that it feels somewhat, I wouldn't say helpless, but it feels locationless. Usually with police violence, when you see people of color lynched, the ire of the public will be taken out on a police precinct. It'll be taken to a elected official. It'll be taken to anybody that is in tandem or connection with that police station or law enforcement. But when it comes to ICE, the only ire that people have been able to direct towards the location is the hotels that they're staying in. And then also basically towards Trump. And so it's been a general sadness, but also to have over 10,000 people come together for a vigil last night is something I don't believe I saw the same thing for George Floyd, but it's just a different. It's kind of the same thing for George Floyd, but it's a different feel. It's a different emotion right now.
This is a state crime. I'm saying that because Orange, for instance, is posting that this will be left up to the local DA and state AG to bring charges. Trump will pardon the ICE agent. Murder in a state jurisdiction, a city jurisdiction, is not a federal. Does it? Let me rephrase it. You're the journalist. I'm sure you know a lot about this. Because he's a federal agent, does that not mean, or does it mean that he has to be charged federally if he's ever charged?
It would take a federal charge, but also what I've been told by experts is that Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County District Attorney, would need to get police reports and then bring out charges. Right now, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, led by Drew Evans, is looking that up. And there's not a whole lot of faith in the BCA bringing about charges to whoever this is. We have seen the BCA time and time again bring no charges to cops. And so it begs the question of, would they even bring charges to this person that has already been publicly exonerated by Kristi Noem and Donald Trump?
So, a few things that are coming out. First of all, I want to say her name, Renee Nicole Good.
Yes.
And that's something that, within the Black Lives Matter culture, you say their name because their life mattered. But a lot of the things, so we saw you brought up Kristi Noem, and they're saying that, Nicole used her car as a weapon. We saw for our own eyes what happened, but they're also saying that she was an observer. And we know in protesting and organizing that term means something. So for our viewers out here, because when they see it on the news, I don't think a lot of people catch it. So I want you to do two things for us. Can you explain to us what it means to be a legal observer? And because we know that ICE flooded at least 2,000 agents within your city, and a lot of what's going on, was she an observer, number one? And then explain to us what that means.
Well, a legal observer, as far as I'm concerned, is somebody who is just paying attention or documenting what is happening. And we also saw that she had her phone up, or was having her phone up, to document what was going on. That is somebody who's just taking account of what's happening. And there's no obstruction, there's no violence, there's no interruption at all. And when told to leave, she actually turned her wheels and left. And the question will be, or the question has already been presented by Trump and Kristi Noem, is that it's not even a question. They've already accused her of endangering the life of a law enforcement officer, which, as I saw, and there's different angles of it. I'll go back a little bit. When you're a legal observer and you're just there, and an officer tells you to move, and if you don't, they can then charge you with obstruction. If an officer grabs you and you present anything in your body that gives a force pulling back, that's called tensing. And that means that you're now resisting arrest. So when you're told to leave and then you leave, or you're told to get out of the car and then you say, no, I'm going to leave, there's precedent to say that she didn't follow their orders, or this, that, and the third. The issue is that ICE has been telling everybody and their cousin to do what they say, show them ID, under the auspices and threat that you're going to be sent to Louisiana or Texas to some torture camp.
You're talking about U.S. citizens? Are you talking about? Okay.
Yes. There was a U.S. citizen that was arrested here a few weeks ago, Somali man, and they arrested him, found that he was not that he was not without papers, and they had to send him back. But the whole point being is that when you're a legal observer, you are there documenting and taking an account of what's going on.
Yeah, and you're right. And someone was at the airport, I believe, in Minneapolis just yesterday after this happened, and it was a black man of Somali descent who they pressed him for ID, but that tensing, your natural reaction when someone grabs you is to tense up, and so that's something that Toussaint, perhaps lawmakers should start looking closely at. If you're being grabbed unexpectedly too, expectedly or not, but certainly unexpectedly, you're going to tense up. So that's something on the books that needs to be looked at and perhaps changed, don't you think?
100%. And then also the big thing that I think a lot of people may not be privy to the phrase is called state created danger. So if the state starts a fire in a room and you start to move around because it's hot and they say don't move around, or otherwise we're going to arrest you, and you move around, well, now they've created a scenario where you're moving around and now they can arrest you for it. There was literally nothing happening on this scene. There was nobody in any urgency. There was nobody at risk. There was nobody being hurt. And you have this outcome where somebody is shot, their life is taken in a completely unnecessary act of violence. And if anybody is going to levy any charges, obviously the federal level, they're not going to do anything. But it's going to take Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County DA, to do something. And if Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, can do something. Tim Walz said just yesterday that he is going to make sure that justice, if it can be had, will be expeditiously put expedited through the process. So it's a strange situation to have somebody waving cars by, observing what's going on, and then suddenly be told to get out of the car. And within the seconds of that, somebody violently tried to open their car door, them turn their wheels and go away, and then be shot in the face while they're leaving.
I want for our viewers and people to know that there has been a rising tension in Minneapolis. We know that ICE has flooded your city with ICE agents. You have been documenting this for days before this incident happened. So there was a sense in the community that, ICE was taking over your city. So I want you to talk about, what has been going on to make a person like Renee and concerned citizens to say, hey, you guys are doing too much. Talk to us about what they're doing in your city.
Yeah, I think the term doing too much would definitely fit what is happening. After they shot and killed Renee Nicole Good, they then went to Roosevelt High School and they started antagonizing and assaulting students. And the pictures that have come out of there, and this is me talking as, a South Sider. I come from the South Side of Minneapolis, and, there is a certain, there's a pride to every side of Minneapolis, but when you just pull up on the South Side and start grabbing people, the thing that I'm not surprised from the pictures is that there's groups of people around these ICE agents, basically telling them like, no, you can't be here. You can't just start grabbing kids or grabbing staff. They apparently reportedly arrested a staff member somebody that was not affiliated with the school, and then just stuck around and began to antagonize kids. And that is just a microcosm of what's going on. Outside of that, ICE has been pinpointing certain suburbs around the Twin Cities, places within the Twin Cities. They've also been working with the St. Paul Police Department. I know that right now it's not the best look for law enforcement departments to be teamed up with ICE. However, this past summer, we saw ICE, HSI, DHS, all teamed up on Lake Street, East Lake Street in Minneapolis, and the MPD came after and also assisted them in getting out, which for Chief Brian O'Hara did not look good for him. And now a lot of people are trying to separate themselves from that. But the most recent people that were, this kind of ruckus that's going around the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul, the most recent team up with ICE was Chief Axel Henry, the chief of the St. Paul Police, on the east side of St. Paul. 3 journalists were assaulted. This has all been building up. So we saw them stage their first presentation on East Lake Street in the summer, where several people were assaulted. People were pepper sprayed and everything over the summer. Then we see them assault journalists a few weeks ago. And now we see this. And a lot of people that have been observing this, honestly, and morbidly, myself as well, I just knew this was a matter of time before it happened in a United States city that ICE murdered somebody.
Yeah. And then there was also the false rumors about the Somali community stealing money from the government. In fact, I saw a report just yesterday that if anything, it was a white woman who was arrested for crimes that was alleged to have been committed by the Somali members of the Somali community. That these folks have just done nothing but mind their business, go to work, pay taxes, etc. I mean, what's the story there?
Well, the story there is, if you can sell a false narrative and get it going for 24 hours, it will take somebody else 24 days to put it out. So it's not the idea of creating any truth or serving people any kind of fact or logic. It's if you can deploy Nick Shirley into Minneapolis and have him stir up enough BS, and then let Democrats and the community ourselves sit there and deal with it, then you've created something for people to distract themselves from their daily lives. The whole point of I think part of the point of state sanctioned violence is just to keep Black people from living their lives. Like, I mean, this is literally the whole point. It's to distract your spirit, time, and energy into something else other than living your life. And so when you have Nick Shirley brought into Minneapolis and begins knocking on the doors of daycare centers, demands entrance, I don't think anybody understands. Myself, I worked at a daycare. I actually worked at a daycare in a Somali neighborhood in Riverside Plaza, Children's Social Society and Family Services. And if somebody just pulled up in there, that is such a danger to everybody in the building and the staff there. So to have the sense of entitlement and exceptionalism, to think that you can just walk in, is one thing. 2, to start accusing every single one of them of fraud is another thing. And 3, to then take your audience, which would never be caught in one of these neighborhoods or has a Somali friend, let alone I would proffer to say a Black friend, just to give them a narrative that doesn't exist. Well, now you have a whole situation on your hands in the city where you're dealing with false narratives and you have to put out the fires, while at the same time you're dealing with violence coming from ICE.
Yeah, we're seeing the protests right now. Our producer Greer was just showing, and we saw protests break out all across the country, from New York to LA to Texas, Chicago, Atlanta. What does today look like for Minneapolis?
Well, I think today for Minneapolis is, I can't speak for all of Minneapolis, but if I can gather from the past, what will happen is that there will be a large community gathering at the memorial site. There'll be a large community gathering at the memorial site. And then there will be plans on where marches can go, where press conferences can be held, where actions can be held, where messaging can go. And there is going to be a 10, 20, or 30-fold effort against ICE in the city. There's going to be whistles being blown, and there's going to be people pulling up wherever they are, because the reason they were able to go to Roosevelt High School and several other schools, mind you, Like this is essentially Nick Shirley with the gun. So they kill Renee Nicole Good, and then they go to Roosevelt as well as several other high schools. And now today, what it also looks like for Minneapolis, since you asked now, is school is out for the next 2 days.
Mm.
Yeah, no, there's no school. There will be no school in Minneapolis public schools for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, because of the chaos, violence, disruption, and trauma that ICE has caused.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah.
And do you think ICE? Do you think ICE will still be active today?
Yeah, because you have to look at the move when you see a police department lynch a man or you know, some type of state sanctioned violence. They usually cool out. They immediately they shut down for 24, 48, 72 hours. And if it gets really, really crazy, they'll actually, you know, step away for weeks or months. It's called the hands off patrol. It was written by Reuters. But for ICE, this doesn't seem to be a deterrence. What they'll do is they'll just reload. And what I mean by that is restaff. They'll bring in new people from a different city, from a different state that don't care. And that is the caliber of human behavior that they are employing. There was a man with an SS tattoo on his neck, a Nazi sigil on his neck, found in Uptown just 2 days ago, a day before Renee Nicole Good was murdered. So, and somebody was saying, "Where are you from? What are you doing here?" He said, "Oh, I'm from Texas. You know, I'm just one of my friends here." Clearly, the whole theory was that this man worked for ICE, and
Right.
there's a reason why you're not seeing a lot of other white supremacy groups and gangs out right now, is because you get X amount of dollars as an entry fee for ICE, and then you can go do what you wanted to do, but just be employed at the same time.
Right, and have no training, no official training.
No. Like the Minneapolis Police Department is ill-trained. They're one of the sloppiest, worst police departments in the state. I don't even know if they would do what that man did.
Wow, that's saying a whole lot.
That's saying a whole lot. Toussaint, I know that you have a lot to do. I want to thank you for joining us. But for our Let It Be Known viewers, I think this is somebody, if you want to know what's happening, boots on the ground, you definitely have to follow Toussaint. Tell us how we can keep up with you.
You can keep up with me at onsitepublicmedia.substack.com, or you can just type in my name, Toussaint Morrison, as you have it up there now, at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube.
And Toussaint Morrison, that is a name that, man, you have to accomplish some great things, my man, because that's a tough one to live. I don't know what your parents was thinking. They set the bar high.
Yeah, my father was a historian, so he was a big fan of Toussaint Louverture, who led the first successful slave rebellion and kicked the French out of Haiti. So,
well, you're definitely, he's definitely living up to that name.
Right,
I can testify to that.
We're trying.
Love the
Thank you so much
name.
for having
Love
me.
the name.
Peace and love, and be safe out there, please.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Stacy. I think our next guest is in. So before we get to more headlines, let's go to Texas, where Texas lawmakers are advancing legislation to eliminate the Texas Workforce Commission Civil Rights Division. Now, this will be the only state responsible for investigation claims, housing. So basically, the Civil Rights Commission investigates claims of housing, employment, and public accommodation discrimination. So if this bill becomes law in Texas, Texas will stand alone as the only state in the U.S. without a civil rights enforcement agency. Now, this is a shift that critics say is driven not by cost cutting, but by the political war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So joining us now to further discuss what's happening in Texas as it relates to civil rights is Texas Rep. Ron Reynolds. Good morning, Ron.
You're on mute, Ron.
I was muted. Good morning. Good morning. I'm excited to be back on, and it's always a pleasure to be on this great show. Let It Be Known. I really enjoy it, and it's good to see you again too, Stacy.
Rep Reynolds is always a pleasure. And he just
Right.
left Niele out.
In the
Isn't it good?
background. Let me
Wait,
give
isn't
real
it
I mean,
good
shout
it's
to
out
see
fine,
to
Niele?
Stacy. It's fine. Let's get into it. It's not about me. It's about Black folks' civil rights in the state of Texas, and this story continues to swell, Ron. And so, talk to us about what's happening at the state capitol in Texas as it relates to people's civil rights.
Well, you were spot on in your opening. Unfortunately, Texas has been down a slippery slope over the last, I would say, the last 10 years. I've been in the legislature now for 16 years, and I've seen a real, this is the MAGA era of conservative politics, where they started off with critical race theory. They went to book bans. Then they went to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so this is the late, and we've had voter suppression when it comes to rolling back voting rights, strict voter ID. So this is a part of the playbook that really what we see is Project 2025. It's outrageous. When you talk about eliminating the enforcement division within the Workforce Commission to investigate discrimination in housing and public accommodation and employment. This is unprecedented. And Texas doesn't mind being the only state that would have this distinction. They want to do it. They want to be, look, we're more MAGA than Florida. We're
Right.
gonna out, MAGA, whoever you name the state. We're that people. That's what they're trying to do. This is Governor Abbott and Ken Paxton, our Attorney General. They're all trying to pivot and go farther and farther to the right. And they use Black and brown people as political pawns. So this is great red meat for their base, but this is terrible for Texas. I want to say this real quick so your listeners know, you guys know this, but there are more African Americans in Texas than any other state in the country. We have the second largest Latino population. We're a majority minority state. This legislation would significantly disenfranchise and disproportionately impact African Americans and Latinos in Texas, and they don't give a damn about that.
Yeah, Rep Reynolds, you took the words out of my mouth about the large Black and Latino population there. Are you seeing, well, let me say it this way. What can those people do? What are they doing? What can they do? What are they doing, Representative Reynolds?
Well, here's what they can do. Well, first of all, I'm working closely with our Texas State NAACP State President, Gary Bledsoe. We're pushing back, raising the alarm about this. I put out information because a lot of people didn't even know this was a proposal. So I'm glad we're talking about this on your show. But what people can do is call their member of the legislature and tell them that this is discriminatory and this is on the wrong side of history. That's one thing they can do. The second thing they can do is we have a real important midterm election coming up in November where we can vote some of these people who are proposing this out of office. Governor Abbott is on the ballot. Lieutenant Governor Patrick is on the ballot. Attorney General Paxton is running for United States Senate. And so we have a chance to really change the landscape so that this bill can never pass. So elections matter. If people want to fight and stand up and make good trouble, then they can do that by going and making sure they're registered and that they're voting in record numbers and getting these people out of office that are trying to set us back. Literally, they're trying to take us back to dark days of Jim Crow. That's what I'm seeing. And that's what people can do. So this doesn't have to pass if people will come out and vote. Texas is we just said, a big state, the second largest state in the country behind California. And if people come out and register and vote, we have a chance to stop this legislation from ever passing.
Okay, so so you kind of answered my question, but where exactly is the bill at the state capitol? What process is it in?
So this is a bill that what they do is they work with organizations like the Heritage Foundation and other conservative think tanks to put these bills into motion. This bill would be, unless the governor calls a special session, it would be one of their top legislative priorities going into the next legislative session. We're not in session right now. And so this bill is they're forecasting again for their red meat for their base. This is the legislation that we would pass if you send us back. So we have a chance right now to stop it in its tracks before it ever gets passed into law. There are other things right now that you guys have probably seen, eliminating the HUB program, the historically underutilized business program. Basically, that is the other piece that they're trying to get rid of, that would allow for minorities, women, and minority-owned businesses to have opportunities that they could compete for state contracts. This is going to be so catastrophic that they're trying to eliminate. Well, not trying. They are eliminating the HUB program. Other states call it Minority Women Business Enterprise Program. And so they're trying to do everything they can so that Blacks are hurt economically, that you can't sue for discrimination. There's nobody to investigate it. There's nobody to enforce it. They're eliminating at the federal level. They're eliminating the Civil Rights Division within so many departments, including HUD and others. So basically, they're trying to take us back where you may be able to have a real discrimination claim, but there's no one there to investigate it or prove it or enforce it. And it's certainly the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has been basically gutted under the administration. So this is gutted at the federal level, and Texas would say, we're going to gut it at the state level. So there'll be no way for anyone to have any recourse if they were discriminated against in housing. And we know housing, there's still so many barriers when it comes to redlining and loans and discriminating against people. And Texas is saying, okay, yeah, so what? You're not, no one's going to be there to enforce it. That is how dangerous this is. It gives a green light to people to discriminate openly against Black and brown Texans.
Representative Reynolds, two quick things. One, let everyone know what district you represent. And two, Mike V is asking about the Americans with Disabilities Act in the state. Are they at the very least honoring the civil rights of Black and Latino folks down there under the ADA?
Yeah, okay, so I represent House District 27 in the Houston area. And when it comes to the Americans with Disabilities Act, that is not being impacted right now, but you do have, you're impacted when it comes to housing, public accommodations, and employment. So I don't really know. I haven't really drilled down as to how it could impact the Americans with Disabilities Act. I don't believe it does. But
well, if you think about it, Representative Reynolds, you said, as you said, and as the bill reads, well, as you know, the proposal is that you're going to eliminate the idea that there is discrimination at all.
Well,
and
that's
that
true.
would
You're
seem
right.
to include people with disabilities. How can I, if I got a broken leg or some sort of disability, right?
I'm glad you enlightened me on that. You're right. I mean, this would be discrimination is discrimination. So discrimination based on disability, you're right. That would be included within that at the state level. I mean, I haven't even envisioned that, but you're right. This is far reaching than just race or gender. This would we could even expand it to include age discrimination, because
100%.
Age discrimination is also prohibited under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Discrimination based on race, age, sex, national origin, or disability. So that's all under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which you're right, fell under the a state statute or a civil remedy for discrimination on the state ground. So you're right, it would include that. So I mean, man, this is far reaching. So people aren't just being hurt that are Black and brown, but the disabled, and also people who are over 65 and over, they wouldn't have that opportunity to pursue an age discrimination claim. So you're right, it is far reaching, far more reaching than I really anticipated. When I was reading it, I was thinking, Black and brown, and but also this would include Muslims. I mean, people with I mean, religious. This would
There you go.
this is so far reaching. Yeah. I mean, this is bigger than I even thought about it, because I was looking at it from a standpoint of, the most
Black and brown, right? But particularly, just think about it, particularly if you are Black or brown. This is, could you imagine a Black person or a Latino person saying, "Oh, I was discriminated because of my age. It's like, okay, turn around and walk back out the door. Ain't nothing we can do for you."
Right. Because, and also, as you guys know, they've gutted the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That's the federal, and so they've already gutted that. So basically, without this in Texas, people would have no recourse. At least in other states, and in Texas currently, you could have a federal claim or a state claim. Basically, this would eliminate a state claim. That's what this would do, and you would be solely left at the the only remedy of a federal claim. And so this is a real dangerous. This would be very dangerous precedent. But we've seen an erosion of so many things over the last several years. And again, this is all under the umbrella of ending diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is everything that they're trying to do. That's why they said they're eliminating the HUB program, because they call it a DEI program.
I know one of our viewers, David Youngblood, is asking, when you talk to your Republican colleagues, what do you say about the impact of gutting civil rights protections?
I've had those discussions with my Republican colleagues. Clearly, they're in the majority in the House and the Senate. And when I'm talking to them one-on-one, they are sensible. Like, well, Ron, I agree with you. This is not good. But then when they're saying, hey, but I can't go against it because I'm going to be, and this is what they all say, I'm going to be primaried. They're going to attack me, and there's no way I can defend it to my base. So they're beholden to not being statesmen, but they're beholden to a base that is gone far right, that shows up in Republican primaries. They said they'll draw an opponent that they'll run to the right of them, and they'll be out of office. That's why they supported vouchers. That's why they supported other bad things, because they're afraid that Trump or the Trumpians are going to put them on blast for one bad vote. They got a Republican, they get a scorecard. Every vote, they rank the vote, and then a lot of times they're afraid to take a position because they believe that it could get them out of office. So they don't have the courage to be statesmen and to speak truth to power. They tend to cower and do what's politically expedient so that they can be reelected.
So at the end of the day, the way to stop the bill is to participate in this year's midterms. That's the
only way. Honestly, we can march, we can protest, we can put up press conferences and boycott and things like that. But unless we vote, unless we change the electorate in the state, we will not be able to stop this bill. Once this bill hits the floor, it's done. It's over with. I've seen this play out before. As soon as they file the bill, no matter how much Texans come out and say, we don't want this, we fill the Capitol, we march, we have all the media. At the end of the day, they just go vote and go home, and we suffer. So yes, the only way to stop it is to vote in November like your lives depend on it. We have upcoming primaries to decide who our nominee is going to be. We have a very exciting, one of my former colleagues, Jasmine Crockett, running for U.S. Senate. I hope that she wins. One of my colleagues that I serve with now, Representative Gina Hinojosa, is running against Governor Abbott. Another one of my colleagues, Vicki Goodwin, is running for lieutenant governor. So we have a whole bunch of people that are giving up their safe seats to run for a higher office to basically take back power. So this will be a referendum. Do people want to be on the right side of history and fight for voting rights and civil rights and women's reproductive rights? Or do they want to support anti-DEI and more legislation like this? That will be what's up on the ballot in November. And I'm going to tell people that when I'm trying to rally people to get out and vote, this is what's at stake right here.
Mm.
Listen, the last thing I'll say is what Greer said. Greer says they should remove the wheelchair ramp at the Capitol. I think we can close with Representative Reynolds on that note.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way. But thank you for sharing with us what's at stake. It's
Thank
important
you.
for people to know. Peace and
Absolutely.
love.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
That's a public combination that I'm in favor of. Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
go.
All right.
I love it. Peace
Reynolds.
and love. But this will be, we'll continue to have these conversations about what's at stake so that we can all help mobilize our families, our communities to get out and vote in the 2026 midterms.
Yeah, and Dr. Marilyn, who is in Texas, she says no due process for federal workers, and they have stopped the union from helping us. Texas is the prototype, she says, for Project 2025, and more states will follow. Absolutely.
For sure.
Wow. A healthcare deal is back on the table, believe it or not. A bipartisan Senate group is nearing an agreement to revive lapsed Obamacare subsidies, with a key negotiator saying the group could release draft legislation by the end of the week. The deal being discussed by the senators would reestablish the enhanced tax credits that expired on January 1st. It will renew them for 2 years with new restrictions, including minimum premium payments and income caps. The developing agreement would pair that with new cost sharing reduction measures and expanding access to healthcare savings accounts. And also, late last night, the House voted 221 to 205 to advance legislation extending the ACA premium subsidies, preventing millions of Americans from facing massive health insurance costs. There were 9 Republicans, Niele, who defied Trump and party leadership and stood up for their constituents. And I think it's important to note that those 9, could it be that they are seeing the chaos? They are seeing there's some humanity there within the MAGA groups?
It's their constituents. At the end of the day, everything is transactional. We know that. It's the constituents in the districts that they live in. But this is also a huge win in that House for Hakeem Jeffries, because he is leading this charge. And so finally, Hakeem got a victory, and he was able to work across the aisle. So kudos to him.
And I think, and you saying that, Representative Reynolds made a great point, and we've heard this. I've heard this in talking to lawmakers on the Democratic side and even on the Republican side. But specifically on the Democratic side, they've said, I talked to them one-on-one, and they're like, yeah, we're with you, but right. So Hakeem, as you said, Hakeem Jeffries working it hard across the aisle, but I think that the situations, not to take anything away from Jeffries, but the situation that we continue to see, the nonsense, there are actually some people who are human on Capitol Hill.
For sure. And it takes strong leadership to be able to pull that out. So just as Mike Johnson is leading Trump's clan, Hakeem Jeffries and other lawmakers, because it takes a team, right? And being able to identify as a leader, Hakeem Jeffries knowing who has relationships with who, sending people to go talk to different legislators and finding out weak spots, soft spots. All of that plays into those 9 Republicans. And most importantly, it's the constituents. It's the districts that they sit in, and they could possibly lose their seats this year.
That's exactly what RNG is saying too.
So let's keep it going, folks. Let's keep it going. And we will continue weekly to have these conversations about what's at stake this midterm election. We know Trump is scared. He's scared and he's not scared because he has a plan B.
He has a major
plan B, C, and D. But most importantly, these are the things as to why we have to let people know how important. Every time we say this is the most important election of our lifetime, I think this time, this is it. Okay. This
Well,
is
that's
it.
the thing. I think the voters themselves have to determine what's the most important. I think the media, I think certain people, of course, and certainly Black folks, for obvious reasons, say about the, most important. But then I think that they have to realize for themselves, voters, that is, have to realize for themselves. And I think you're right. I think they're realizing that it's just how vital this is. But as you said, old Donnie boy has a trump card so, that he's already talked about using. Folks, subscribe to the Let It Be Known YouTube page. It's I think it's very important that you do. And this next story highlights for me why it's continue important to have a trusted voice like Let It Be Known. We try to be your trusted voice anyway.
Of
But
headlines and news.
of headlines and news. But the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, it's one of the big mainstream papers, a great newspaper, I will say, a fantastic newspaper, announced that it is ceasing operations. The family-owned company that operates the paper cited mounting losses and labor constraints, and its final edition will be published, they say, on Sunday, May the 3rd. We don't celebrate in any way the closure of news organizations, particularly someone who has that history of the Post-Gazette. But I will say this, Pittsburgh will be well served because there is the new Pittsburgh Courier that's been there. One of the historic Black-owned newspapers headed by Rod Doss over there in Real Times Media. But check out, it gives you more opportunity now to really check out if you're in the Pittsburgh area. If you're not in the Pittsburgh area, if you want news from the Allegheny County region, check out the new Pittsburgh Courier. Great news there. So you're not going to really miss real news and honest news.
Yeah, I mean, and it talks too about how newspapers have to really intentionally get into the digital space, and not just the digital space, but YouTube shows and making sure you have a social presence, because that's what's driving media. I mean, if we know that most people are getting their information from their phones. So if we know these things, and I think this is the pivotal moment for print publications, is how well they adjust and adapt. Because look, even television, they had to adapt to social media. Look at how they are in our news feeds. And so I think that is where some of our most trusted news sources are falling by the wayside, because they just have not been able to integrate into a social digital space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ironically, TV is suffering right now because the internet is TV.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. The Trump administration has scrapped plans to feature Ruby Bridges, Frederick Douglass, and a women's right coin holding a Votes for Women flag. And they're doing this on the US's 250th anniversary commemorative coin. Now, as America's 250th anniversary coins begin to circulate, outrage is growing over who has been left out. Now, what remains is a narrow vision of patriotism. This is who the Trump administration decided to move forward with, and then dismiss women's rights, Ruby Bridges, and Frederick Douglass. Check this out. They're doing George Washington representing the Revolutionary War and the nation's founding. They're doing Thomas Jefferson representing the Declaration of Independence. They're doing Abraham Lincoln representing the Civil War and the Gettysburg Address. They're doing James Madison representing the U.S. Constitution and the framework of American government. And they are idealizing a Pilgrim couple representing the Mayflower. Okay. And they're saying this is what America is. We're not getting into DEI.
Well, again, it's so interesting that they even mention the Constitution, because these folks they continue to show they do not value anything in that Constitution.
No, they don't at all. And I mean, it's just, we keep hearing about this 250th anniversary, and it's only going to get worse, right? It's only going to get worse, Stacy.
It's only gonna get worse. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so that right there, you had a story you wanted to get to.
I did.
Mhm.
Yes, I did. So folks, the Supreme Court returns on Friday, and it's going to be interesting what happens going forward. Will they finish gutting the Civil Rights Act? There's a thought that they may put that off until May, and that is a big victory. Even if they decide to gut it in May or June, if they put it off this month, it will effectively put an end to a lot of these redistricting for this coming midterm elections. Of course, they're away in the case of Louisiana versus Calais that could weaken Section 2. But already some states like Louisiana are saying, well, it's a bit too late now for our new maps to go into effect. Election experts say the court is unlikely. They're growing more and more unlikely to do anything now. They will punt it until May or late June when they leave in session. So what that means, folks, really, as Niele talked about the midterms, what it really means is that Black lawmakers who this redistricting is threatening to remove their seats, they will still have their seats for this coming midterms. They will still have the votes for this coming midterms. And what it really means is that if the Democrats do win, they will have a window, albeit a small window, to undo some of the stuff that has happened, because they will then have the votes in both chambers. That is the hope anyway, that they would have the votes in both chambers. And of course, if they have the votes in both chambers, the primary function, as Donald Trump said himself, the primary mission would be to impeach and remove the current administration.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Here's a little tidbit of good news too, Stacy, to follow that. The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee has approved subpoena requests for Les Wexner, the longtime friend and client of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the committee also voted to subpoena Darren Endike and Richard Kahn, Epstein's lawyer and accountant, plus American businessman Neville Singham and journalist Seth Harp. Now, this move shows the House Oversight Committee could continue to find itself at the center of efforts to reinvestigate the Epstein case. And of course, this comes as the Justice Department continues to play with the American people and Congress with releasing these files. They say they have over 1 million more pieces of documents to release.
Yeah, they do.
But the Oversight Committee, Republicans and Democrats, are moving forward. And when they subpoena, because the subpoenas have been approved, when they have these committee hearings, prime time. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's go. And let's go. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Trump when he finds out, or if he's found out about this? Can you imagine? Because somebody's gonna talk.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's not about him finding out. He knows. He knows. It's a matter of whether or not it goes public, right?
It's going to go. The committee hearings are going to be public.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. He's more concerned with than people, than revelations, because it's been revealed how deeply intertwined he is with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and we know that people, they might not read those files, but those clips, we were just talking about news and clips. Those clips are going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
so
everywhere.
They're going to be everywhere. Let's head over to some sports headlines, where the NFL and 3 of its teams are asking the Supreme Court to take up their appeal in a discrimination lawsuit brought on by Coach Brian Flores. Now, in a petition docket from Tuesday of this week, the NFL and the teams, and I'm talking about the Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, and New York Giants, urged the justices to reverse a ruling that will allow the case to proceed before a jury. Now, Flores' lawsuit, if you recall, alleges systemic racial discrimination by the NFL and the teams under the league's Rooney Rule. NFL teams must interview a minority candidate for head coach openings, but Flores described his interviews as a sham.
Yeah, and what he did was he, revealed something that, everyone, if you follow any type of sports, you don't even have to follow sports, but we knew that it was something that was going on when the Rooney Rule was instituted. Great. They have to interview minority coaches for every opening. They have to. But you had to understand, as wrong as it is, it would be these perfunctory things. It would be these just because I have to type things. And I believe Mr. Flores, the interview most likely was just that, a sham. They probably called them in, asked them a few routine questions, and said, "We will consider your application."
Yeah,
and tossed it in the trash.
So we were talking about what is it called, Massacre Monday, the NFL, where all the coaches got fired. This right here may make that Rooney Rule more powerful this time around. And Black coaches and minority coaches and leadership may have a better chance because of this case.
Right. They may. Yeah, I see where you've gone with that, and you might be right. With this lawsuit hanging. Now, I don't expect the U.S. Supreme Court, especially these three owners, to go against them. I don't. It's like them going against Trump. Tish over in with the Giants and Houston and Denver. These are MAGA people. Those are their own. So I don't anticipate it, but strange things do happen. But more than that, what you're saying is, while this is going on, and because it's now in the news the way it is, the all these job openings, somebody will be inclined to say, I better get me a Black coach.
For sure. Or a general manager.
Manager, yeah.
And finally, DMX. This is such a great story. DMX is said to be posthumously ordained as a minister. Give it up for the X. Now, according to All Hip Hop, Foster Memorial AME Zion Church, which was once a stop on the Underground Railroad, is set to honor DMX by naming him an ordained minister this weekend. And so the late icon born Earl Simmons will be honored by the Gospel Cultural Center at the venue, which first opened in 1860. Now, the late rapper passed, if you recall, in 2021, but his faith has remained a long-lasting piece of hip-hop culture and his legacy. I mean, you could be on social media and a DMX prayer will pop up, okay? And so I think this is great for him. I think this is good.
But, okay, I don't understand why. He's dead, unfortunately.
That's why it's posthumously.
No, I get it. But what does that? How do you ordain someone? What's the point of ordaining someone as a minister posthumously? Is what my question is. What's the point?
I mean, I think it's good for young people. His prayers still circulate.
I understand that part, but you have your pastor, right?
I love it.
No, listen. I am not.
No. I mean,
I'm not condemning it
or
anything like that. It's not that I don't love it or like I have no feeling about it, except for the question is why. I was trying to get an understanding of why is this something that a church or church organization would do. I understand, like Catholics say that, not that I even agree with this, but they will say somebody in sainthood or whatever, right? After they're dead or whatever.
This is the same thing.
So this is what this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay. No, see, you learn something every day.
I mean, but you knew that. That's why you.
No, I did not know that. As I talked about it. Well, as I talked it out. Right.
Okay, you talked it out. There you have it.
Okay.
Look, we're ordaining them. The Catholics would call him a saint.
Okay, so that's
Same
right.
thing.
As I talked it out, and I didn't until you confirmed it. I would not have known I was right.
Michelle Madison said, "Lord, give me a
Give me a
sign."
sign. That's a shame.
DMX. I mean, I just think that DMX would be one, and I hate to say it this way, but he would get high and then he would pray. I mean, that's a mixture, but hey, in the words of Sugar, see, Daddy, sinners have souls too. And DMX, I just think this is good for the culture. And a lot of people, he was one of the dopest and illest MCs because of his vulnerability, because of his challenges, but also because of his faith. And so if they're doing this for him, why not? Donald Trump wants the Nobel Prize. Give ordain DMX.
He had the most distinctive voice there was ever.
Yes,
in hip-hop.
yes. And I also, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that Ayanna Van Zant clip. It is the most funniest thing because she's telling him to give up drugs, and he was like, "Why? I think God sees me. He sees who I am. Why?" So, very challenged life, but also a man of faith. And you find tons of those types of people in the Bible. So DMX, I don't know, but they was drinking wine. They was drinking wine. They could have been. We don't know what they called it back then.
Yeah.
Greer, you popped in?
I was just recalling that episode because, one of the things that she was trying to do was help him reunite with his son. And, DMX was a very smart man, right? Because despite what we may feel about it, or even what that argument may have looked like, what he was suggesting was that if there is love between me and my son, that it should be unconditional, right? He was talking about unconditional love despite, and I mean, it was a very painful moment between a father and a son, certainly, but also someone that was a true poet struggling with his demons, right? And I don't know, I just remember that that was probably one of her most viral moments of Fix My Life. That was one of those, that's one that would definitely go down in the books when DMX was on a young.
I agree. I totally agree.
But but just seeing him in this vulnerable way, and as violent as it was, he still appeared to be in control of his mind. Saying that was such a deep thing. I'm sorry, it just brought back when you brought that. I'm like, yo, yeah.
Now guess what I would be listening to all day today?
Yeah, absolutely, you are.
That'll be my soundtrack today. But let's jump
This is how Rough Riders roll. On this date in 1867, folks, African-American men gained the right to vote in the District of Columbia, despite the veto of its most powerful president, President Andrew Johnson. The Republican-controlled Senate overrode Johnson by a vote of 29-10, 3 years before a constitutional amendment granted the right to vote to all men, regardless of race.
Important fact to know. And let's fast forward to the year of 1972. Sanford and Son debuted.
Oh gosh!
Now this groundbreaking NBC sitcom starring Red Fox as a junk dealer and Fred Sanford premiered and quickly became a cultural iconic show, resonating with both Black and white audience. Sanford and Son.
Listen, that clip that she just showed was one of the most hilarious lines ever delivered on that show.
Which was?
She says to him, "The Lord said, do not be drunk with wine." And Fred said, "Well, what does it say about scotch?"
And there's his son Lionel. Was it Lionel?
No, Lamont, little lame Lamont.
Lamont. Okay, Lionel was in the Jeffersons, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Lamont.
Yes, yes. And it's so interesting because again, that's the type of show that the lines, the writing in that show, and Paul Mooney was a big writer on that show.
Oh, I didn't know
People,
that.
right? I was going to say a lot of people wouldn't know that, but he was one of the essential writers, and they would not allow that today. It's just not allowed. And that character right there, that man that Esther's pulling out, was one of the Woodrow characters. He wasn't the best of the two. The other guy was just phenomenal in the role of Woodrow. And I think that man right there, I don't know his name, but he may have appeared in maybe 2 or 3 episodes as Woodrow before they got a permanent and better Woodrow. But man. It was hilarious for its day. It still would be, to me, I still find it so amusing.
Was that a Norman Lear show?
Sanford Son, I believe, was a Norman Lear show. I believe it was.
Okay.
But because it was the same time as All in the Family, and there was a lot of comparisons to Archie Bunker and Fred Sanford. Just like, of course, George Jefferson and Archie Bunker are uniquely related, because George Jefferson came out of All in the Family, that character, and Lionel, and of course Lionel, the one who played Lionel, actually helped write Good Times.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
he was there.
Yeah, so they all connected. Maude, because Maude was on All in the Family as well. She started there, and they spent it off to Maude. Maude actually, so Good Times was a spinoff of Maude, because Florida Evans was Maude's maid, and James was I think he was, he was one of the blue collar workers. He would come by, of course, from time and again on the Maude show. And of course, he couldn't come through the front door, but then because of her love of Florida, he would come to the front door anyway. It was really interesting. All those shows are connected.
Right.
And Archie Bunker, I mean, when we reflect on that, they really dealt with some heavy topics of that time. Remember that? Remember
transgenderism?
What I mean? The guy coming in, his army buddy, and and that's when we were all introduced to. At least that's the first time I remember seeing Rob Reiner.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. I mean, and the Jeffersons over the holidays. I saw episodes of the Jeffersons I'd never seen, like before they moved to the east side to a deluxe apartment. They was in an apartment, and George was trying to get the loan for the cleaners. I had never seen those episodes before. And when they wanted him to give him the loan, but they didn't want the loan officers didn't want him to open the cleaners in the Black neighborhood because they said it was a high risk. And so George told them to get your hunky ass on up out of here.
That was his word.
I'll get my loan someplace else. And then when he got it, riots broke out, and so people were running back and forth in front, and he came out like, "I'm Black," and the guy goes, "They just killed Dr. Clint King." And George picked up the chair and threw it through the window. I had never seen these episodes before, but to the point, they always spoke truth to power and spoke to the times of the day.
I love
unapologetic. Too.
Unapologetically, I love Carol O'Connor in the sense that when even at that time in the 70s, early 70s, when he was playing Archie Bunker, a very racist person who hated not just he didn't not hate it because he allowed a lot of stuff to go on with Lionel and stuff. He liked Lionel, but like he saw Lionel as a boy. Carol O'Connor in the 70s would give television interviews, and he would talk about how horrible racism is, and he would break stuff down. And Carol O'Connor, a lot of people don't realize this, he adopted Howard Rollins, the Black actor, in real life. He adopted him legally.
Well, who was that actor? Who was he played? So I can.
So many might remember Howard Rollins from In the Heat of the Night, the television series. He was the lead detective there under Carol O'Connor's Chief Gillespie character. And Howard Rollins also, most my age anyway, might remember from Ragtime. He was the black guy, the star of that, along with was it? I want to say Edward G. Not Edward G. Robinson, the other old school guy that got older, but nonetheless, Archie Bunker's bigoted character also. That show showed you how stupid racism was, and he was also a homophobic. He was also, he was
Oh, that's him. Okay,
from
I know him.
Ragtime. Yes, that's it.
I know who
That's
that is.
Howard Rollins from Ragtime. Yes. But
Thanks, Square.
all the
Harold Hart
family,
was a very progressive, person during that time. Very progressive in Hollywood, and just that's who he was.
And so that's why Norman Lear was such an ally, because he was a white man, telling Black stories in a true and rare form, which was great for the culture, right? It was great for the culture and for people sometimes to see themselves. Like there was a lot of Archie Bunkers out there that had to look in the mirror and be like, is that really who I am?
Yeah. I think Norman Lear got a lot of criticism for Good Times from the Good Times cast. Specifically John Amos and Esther Rowe. And this is why they both left the show. In fact,
there's a conversation with Thelma. I'm not sure what her real name is, but she talks about what happened to that show. And she also said that JJ and the father, they were very close in age. So there was a lot of clashing between those two men. I never knew that.
The stories are legendary.
Right. Yeah. And she breaks it down and she talks about how Esther Rowe left the show because she didn't agree with, she was such a religious woman in the show. And then they had her marry an atheist. And she was like, it doesn't make
the guy
any
who died. Yeah, the guy
and
who
so
died
she
after.
left. And then she came back after they got rid of him. And so who knew? But somebody was asking a question. Mike V says, any connection to 227 and Different Strokes? I don't think it's a connection there, but I know there's a connection to Different Strokes and The Facts of Life.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a connection with those two shows.
The Mrs. Garrett.
Yes,
was
Mrs.
same
Garrett.
character on both. Right, exactly. You think about connections like Soap and Benson. Benson spun off from Soap, which was one of the most hilarious shows ever. Soap was absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was. And this is my last one. So I was telling Greer yesterday, and since we're talking about old school shows, I started the end of the vacation watching Dynasty. And so I haven't got to Diane Carroll yet. But, we talk about, them addressing issues. I mean, I look at that show totally different now than I did as a child. I didn't realize all that was going on in that show.
Yeah. And remember watching soap operas, especially nighttime soap operas, that was a family affair. You know what I mean? Friday nights, Thursday nights, you had Dynasty, you had Dallas. Dallas was with
Knots Landing.
Flamingo Road.
Yeah. And listen, and remember the big deal with Dynasty was Diane Carroll being the half sister of this white man, right?
Okay, see, I'm not there yet. See, I didn't know that. I don't remember. I look at it. I didn't realize.
With my clothes and no, girl.
I had no idea. Girl. I had no idea that Joan Collins was sleeping with women.
What?
I didn't. Yes. The butler threatened her. Was I saw your escapades while you've been away. Sleeping with lonely women. I was like, what? And then the son was gay.
That was gay, right.
The son was gay. And then Crystal, the secretary. I didn't realize she was the secretary. And then the daughter, Fallon. I'm telling you, it's on Tubi, y'all.
Like V says, there was no internet, so Black folks had to come together in front of that TV. He's so right.
Yeah. And that was a big deal about that character being a gay man, because that was the era of AIDS. And
Yep.
anytime you saw a
Mm.
character
And
on
that was the
TV,
beginning of that era too.
yeah, you're right.
Early in that era, anyway. I should say.
Absolutely. But whenever you would see a gay, it was always controversial when you would show a gay character on TV, you know, and especially white
I
men.
didn't even know they did that back then.
Oh,
I didn't know. But
Yeah,
and he was actually bisexual, but I think he was gay, but I think he played with his sexuality because of his father.
Well, you remember Billy Crystal played a gay
I was
character
about
in
to say
Soap.
on Soap. Right. I was going to say that.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, he was very gay.
Right.
So everybody acting new. I mean, come on, y'all.
But it wasn't that those characters were always, it was clear that they were on the fringes of society, right?
It was very clear.
It was a very clear thing in showing those characters that there was something that was considered deviant about those characters, and they were tragic characters, even in comedy, right? Even in comedy, they were tragic,
right? Because they were always there. Well, the son is the character. He's not happy. You can see like there's something inside. He's just not happy. He despises his father because his father killed his lover. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. But if you want to see all of these shows that we're talking about, you can just go to Tubi. They're all there.
They're all on Tubi.
They're all on Tubi. Soap, Benson, Dynasty, The Jeffersons. I'm not sure about All in the Family, but most Sanford and Son, they're all there on Tubi.
Yeah, just briefly going back to that conversation about the homosexual characters and stuff like that in the early into the Dr. Maryland, there was a lot of talk about Sherman Hensley. He never admitted, I don't think he ever publicly admitted that he was gay, but it was one of those Luther Vandross type situations. After he died, you found out that his caretaker was a man, or his partner was a man for a long time, and then folks said, yeah, he was gay, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mike says the hair and makeup and shoulder pads. Yes, the hair. White women would never today wear their hair like that.
My point is that you didn't. It was so risque and they had these gay characters, but you did not. You didn't understand in the era of AIDS, a lot of stuff. But so in some ways they were educating you a little bit, because I'll never forget a young lady I went to high school with. She told me one day, she showed me this picture, right? We were very close, and she showed me this picture, beautiful girl. Showed me this picture of her, a guy, and the girl in the picture, right? And she's like, she wants to introduce me to her, her lover. And I'm thinking lover. I'm thinking, okay. So I look at the picture. I'm thinking it's the guy. I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to meeting him. And she goes, I want you to look at the picture again. And I looked at the picture, and it dawned on me that she wasn't talking about the guy. And so about an hour later, the girl comes over. And this is the first time I was introduced to a homosexual couple, a lesbian couple. And I said to her, are you concerned about AIDS? She got really upset and told me to go and and educate myself.
Right. Because that's the way the government, but that's the way they wanted to frame that conversation, when the conversation, should have been that everybody should be protected and safe. But they wanted to make it a taboo type thing. And I mean, we know, we know, but at the same time, you have so many down low people that it was spreading. And so to just make it an isolated to gay men was a horrible thing to do.
But, and not to just to, I guess to lighten things up a little bit, you did not know that Sherman Hensley was gay after seeing him on social media. Like, he was born under a rock, honey, because he was giving very much the tease.
But that was after the Jeffersons, because in the Jeffersons, he was all man. Yeah, in the Jeffersons, he was all man.
But I'm just saying, by the time he came out with that disco record, no shade. I'm just saying.
I had forgotten until recently, Greer, that he did put out that record. Because I came across that video maybe a few months ago for the first time. I don't remember seeing it in the past.
I mean, I think Cheese brings up a good point. Back in the day, Black women wore their natural hair. Everybody did. White women didn't have no tracks in their hair either. I mean, because Linda, Crystal, the Carrington's wife, I was like, where is she going with them bad bangs? And that looked like she you could tell she was using sponge rollers. Remember you sponge rollers to roll your hair? I mean, and like
rollers got a bad rap because we found out they took your hair out. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
So you started using paper.
Right.
Going back to paper. I mean, so your curl wasn't always quite right because that end would, you had to really,
right, and you see that. You see that, and Joan Collins was wearing roller sets. I mean, I love
oh my
roller
God!
set.
Listen, this segment of Let It Be Known is brought to you by the hot comb.
But
don't let me pull out that picture of my mother, pressing my hair in front of the stove, honey. Because I
gosh.
But to Mike V's point, the 80s was lit because everything was natural. Nobody was getting weaves. You might wear a wig, but nobody's wearing no weaves. The makeup, I'm glad that we have evolved in the makeup sense.
Well, Michelle Madison says she still uses the sponge curlers. And MB says those curler sets.
I use my rods from time to time. Okay, I use my rods still, but I don't use the sponge curlers no more, Michelle.
No more sponge curlers.
No more sponge. Remember, Greer just said it pulls your hair out.
Well, Michelle's doing good with her hair.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But some of those old things are still new and good, like sitting under the hair dryer. I'll sit under the hair dryer.
Just real quick, because I know we got to wrap this up. Dr. Marilyn says they talked about HIV on an episode of A Different World where Tashina Arnold was the guest. I remember that.
I remember that too. Yeah. But that's why this show is so much fun, because we are from Gen X. So we can talk about these things. And I'm glad, Stacy and Greer, that we've had these experiences, because this new generation, they could learn a few things from the past.
Okay, but real quick, what's VO8 and VO5? MB and Sassy Sade.
I remember that. I remember that.
Because hair had a smell as well, right? That was the hair medicine. VO5 was hair medicine. You used to stick it in the water to make it, it was conditioning for the hair.
Okay.
It used to, remember hair medicine, hair food.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Hair grease. I don't know if people still using hair grease. The VO5.
Michelle Madison said, yes, Stacy Brown, I have a lot of hair. LOL. And it's true. When you don't put a lot of heat in your hair, I bet your hair is pretty and full because you didn't put no heat in your hair. And that's something that we used to do back in the day. We didn't have this, besides the pressing comb. We would roll our hair and stuff like that. We ain't using no heat.
And Sassy Sadie says hair grease in a tube.
And Mike V says people had jerry curls and plastic
and
on
the
couch to prevent the grease from. Oh, you took it way back. Remember, since we're bringing up the plastic, remember you walk in the house and that clear plastic was on the floor from the living room
absolutely.
to the kitchen. From the living room to the kitchen. Don't
Listen,
step
my
over
grandmother had,
floor.
right, and she had the beads.
Okay.
Oh gosh, that is Murray's.
Oh, Murray's, yeah.
Much.
Lot of body, we used a lot of body in the pink lotion bottle. I never had a jerry curl though. Did you have a jerry curl, Stacy?
Oh yeah.
Greer, did you have a jerry curl?
No, but I did have a little S curl for like a week.
Sassy Sade said she had a jerry curl.
Let me tell you something.
Listen, but LA kept that curl going for decades.
Longer than it should have been.
It was decades. Decades, baby. Decades.
Yeah. And the jerry curl had a smell.
I'm gonna tell you why.
I'll
tell you why I did it. I did it for love. My girlfriend's at the time, my girlfriend's mom was a hairdresser, and she was always telling me, "You would look good with this. You would look," and that was her mother talking. So yeah, so I let her do it. I'm like, yeah, come on, let's do
Right
it.
on. Now,
All right.
he brings up a good point. See, when we talk about anything but politics, you can sit at the table. Tattoos. What were our tattoos back in the 80s? Like, if tattoos are the thing of today, what would be our thing of yesterday?
Tattoos were really taboo because
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah, they were like, it was, if you had a tattoo, you were thought of you were in a gang,
Or like a bike rider.
right?
So what
But
would
what
yeah,
I'm saying, what is ours? If today is tattoos, what would
was
be
our
our
thing?
like, wild thing back in the 80s and 70s?
I mean, wild
That's a-
thing.
That's
African medallions. There you go.
African medallions.
Medallions.
Yep,
Yes,
medallions.
there you go. Mike
That'll
A
be
had it. Yep.
okay. The medallions. Okay.
Medallions. Yeah, I wore a medallion. We all wore medallions. That's
Yeah.
true. Wow. Okay.
Michelle Madison said, "No Jerry curl for me. Me neither, sis. I love my satin pillow sheets." Oh yeah, because he'd come over and sit on the couch and then he'd leave. And don't let your mama not know you had company. She'd know you had company if he had a Jerry curl. The smell and the stain.
Oh my. Yeah. The medallions and
Listen,
the
don't
flexes
forget,
with
you to
names.
have company, you had to have permission.
Well, not after school because they was at work, baby.
So it was at work. No, you supposed to
Oh.
don't let
Right.
them find out somebody was up in their house.
They was at work. But no, like that's
Neele
back
was a
in the
bad
day.
girl.
That was back in the day. But yeah, that's what you're gonna get with this show. Headline news and Gen X conversations.
How many companies can you have, Greer, is what Mike V. Whatever company she had to get permission. That's the bottom line. Oh,
We
man.
all had to get permission.
Yeah, that
Yes,
lady
indeed.
across the street was telling. So
Oh, listen, we all had a Miss Cat on the block that was going to tell everything. We all had it.
Well, look, as we're gearing you up for tomorrow, y'all, because we're going to give you the headlines, but we're also going to lighten it up too, because we have a special guest, and we're going to start talking about what books we're reading. So you definitely want to check us out tomorrow.
That means I'll be more of a viewer than a participant. I ain't reading no books.
So you just
we
read
have
news articles.
Rashonda Tate,
We got
Love
Rashonda
from Harlem.
coming
A lot of
tomorrow.
little,
That's-
she always got a little gossip or scandal, black.
Yeah, all the time. That's our girl right there, Rashonda, and her Queen of Sugar Hill book. Oh my gosh, Rashonda's written about 60 books now.
Oh, nice.
And that is
Okay.
not, yeah, that's not an exaggeration. She's written about 60 books. Rashonda is awesome.
All right.
So-
Well, she'll be here with us tomorrow. And of course, for the latest in Black news, you can head over to BlackPressUSA.com as we continue to monitor Minneapolis.
Subscribe to the Let It Be Known YouTube channel. Let it be known, folks, because I know a lot of you subscribe to Black Press to watch this, and that's great. But subscribe also. It doesn't cost anything. You can do a double subscription. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.